But I'm delighted to say Derek McGrath is with us. Derek, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good, very good. There's a couple of things we want to talk to you about. The situation generally in hurling at the moment. Big Dan announced that he was retiring from all hurling during the week as well. And we thought we may take a moment to just... because he's kind of one of those figures who transcends his local county and becomes a national icon. And there's not that many hurlers who manage to do that. So what was he like to work with?
First of all, I suppose he's done it all in the game. I was lucky enough to play with Dan even as I'm in '94 and played with him under 21 for 3 years. And obviously he went on to have a very successful career in '98 when Dan probably, came to kind of national prominence in terms of, the '98, the famous Munster final of '98. So to work with him first and foremost as a player growing up, started off obviously as this kind of young, gangly. I would have always said when we were playing him level, even that he was nervy at that stage. We kind of thought we would have been able to get to him, but that when he got to 17, 18, obviously, he was brilliant in the air, and obviously 2007 saw him kind of win hurler of the year. So he was a brilliant guy. In terms of working with him,
we're just having a bit of trouble with the line there, so we might come back to you and see if we can get a slightly better connection for 2 seconds, just to make sure that everybody can actually hear that. So yeah, one of the things I think I think Dan is kind of in that period where players still didn't have helmets.
Yeah,
and kind of just goes over that period where it was just easier for I don't know, not easier, like obviously, but to be super recognisable as an individual.
Yeah, he certainly transcended his sport as well as his county, and like the fact that I didn't realise he was 45 now. Looks well for 45, but even to be playing for Lismore at 45, you might say, oh, that's grand, it's club hurling, but still a high quality level of championship. I think he said maybe after his retirement to WLR that he played maybe a year of junior club, a year of intermediate club, and ever since it's been senior club championship for his club. So I mean, he's been playing at a high level, not just at intercounty but at club level since, and the fact that he's 45 and has still been doing it, quite remarkable. And I know the news has come in today or yesterday that he's going to be joining the Laois backroom staff, I think, as well. Nice. With Willie Maher. So he will be kept busy but I think it's not the last we'll be seeing of Dan Shanahan. Certainly he'll be in an intercounty job at some stage.
We've got Derek McGrath back with us. Sorry, Derek, you were just saying to bring him in as part of your backroom team.
Yeah, and look, I suppose the insecurity I would have had, I suppose, as a manager is the fact you didn't have a kind of this prominent inter-county career. So who do you go to in Waterford? So look, you go to friends first and foremost, but he was, having done all he had done in the game, there was never a sense when he was imparting information of kind of, boastfulness or anything like that. He's, people see Dan and they see the tattoos and they kind of judge from afar, but he's a very affable, very nice guy, you know what I mean, and very, very gentle fella in actual fact, really, really gentleman around the group. But in an era where with Justin McCarthy, where he was ghosting in for goals, and you talk about the Lark Corbett movement under Eamon O'Shea, I think Dan was kind of ahead of the game when it came to kind of movement off the ball and kind of, as I said, ghosting in for goals, and he would be very good at imparting all that information. Even at the weekend there, he was involved with Colligan junior team. They bridged the gap, winning the junior here in Waterford for the last 37 years. They hadn't won it. He was involved. I think he's going to be involved with Willie Maher in Laois now as part of the backroom team, and he'd be a brilliant addition, brilliant coach, brilliant skills coach in particular, in terms of the speed of your hurling. Loves it and hugely dedicated to the game and to Lismore particularly.
Derek, I was actually listening on Sunday's show. Brian Kerr and Kenny Cunningham were in studio here with Joe, and Brian was sitting in this seat talking about Kenny right beside him, about the leadership qualities he possessed and why he picked him maybe or why he was a captain for the Republic of Ireland. Like, as someone who played alongside Dan, bringing him into your own backroom team as well, like, you must have seen some leadership qualities that he possessed, and clearly that was something that was one of his strong points.
Well, he has. Look, what's needed in Waterford often is he has passion anyway. First of all, he actually loves Waterford. He loves Lismore, so there's a pureness there to what he's doing, and almost an innocence at times, if that makes sense. In terms of the, he kind of, when you look at him physically, he's obviously this imposing specimen. As I said already, it's just the whole ability to be able to impart stuff in a manner that's very ordinary, and huge passion. And sometimes, that's needed on a line, and over the years we were kind of, he's very funny too. Dan is, is a great wit about him, a great kind of sense of kind of what's on the ground in terms of what's been said in both Lismore and Dungarvan and West Waterford in general. He'd feed that information without it becoming kind of overburdening. He works on an oil truck, and people love to see him coming to their houses, like to fill the tank, if you like, because he just, as I said, has that kind of affable kind of lovely character, if you like, and he might go in there after a good or a bad day with Waterford, either as a player or a selector, and he's the same kind of jovial self, and that's difficult in itself. So he's been able to manage that over the years in terms of being a kind of a local, he's been able to manage that kind of characteristic of his own kind of personality that he's able to kind of take the criticism, take the good times, and somewhere in between lies his character, which is a really good character.
Yeah, totally. Didn't Christy Ring do the same thing? Am I right in saying that?
That's right.
There's a long line of
yeah, and look, and I heard Shane talking about the fact that he's playing senior hurling. Like, he's marked Conor Prunty, he's marked Barry Coughlin, he's marked the best of fullbacks in Waterford and held his own over the last number of years as well. So it wasn't just a case of kind of standing there on the edge of the square. He's been well able, and he's contributed greatly to Lismore over the last number of years. Yeah,
no doubt. Can I ask you about your own managerial career? What stage are you at the moment? Are you happy to be out of the game? Are you, like, having taken the lessons of the last number of years, processed them and ready to go again? Where do you stand at the moment?
Yeah, good question. I thought you might ask. Yeah. Look, I suppose I left it in 2018. Since then, I've been involved with last 2 or 3 years. I've been involved with Laois Minors. We had a great success last year, getting to the Leinster final for the first time in a number of years. So look, I've enjoyed that. I suppose I've enjoyed not the less pressurised environment of kind of almost a kind of a sub role or a role in the background. My own young lad, my oldest boy, is going into fifth year here in De La Salle inside in the school. So the plan, I suppose, at family level was as much as possible to kind of maybe get him through the leaving cert. Not that I'm directly involved in his leaving cert or anything like that, but just, I suppose, in terms of the family environment, you're hoping to kind of maybe my youngest boy then would be kind of heading into De La Salle College in first year. So the plan was hopefully to not stay out of it for another couple of years. Not that you can't pick and choose where you're going to be, or you have no divine right to be involved in any team at that level. So yeah, I'm in the middle, I suppose, of trying, to get better and learn from it. I'm heartened by the way the game has gone, believe it or not. I know people would probably say the opposite, but I'm heartened that things that perhaps that we were involved with integrating over the years in terms of tactically are now part and parcel of the game. So I'm heartened in terms of where the game is going and where it will continue to go. So I'm thinking strongly about being involved over the next couple of years, but I suppose the opportunity has to be right, and family life in particular has to allow it to happen, if you like. Not that my wife would in any way stop me, but I suppose it's your own personality wanting to contribute at home as well,
Your name invariably, Derek, comes up when big intercounty jobs. I think the Dublin and Waterford jobs, particularly this summer, your name was certainly mentioned in the rumour mill before those jobs were filled. Like, is it the case that myself and Ger spoke at the top of the show about how Monaghan and Donegal and Roscommon can't seem to find a manager this summer and to replace their outgoing managers? Is it a case that the club game and the lack of public focus and pressure in club game compared to the intercounty game just puts a lot of people off at the minute?
It's hard to know. I can only speak personally in that I found it, you listen, not that I'm comparing myself to Brian O'Driscoll or anything, but you listen to the aftermath of someone that's involved at the level O'Driscoll was involved in over the years and the struggle. I don't think I struggled, but what you do is I'm speaking personally, you miss the busyness of it, you miss the pressure of it in actual fact. And that sounds counterintuitive to say that. So for me personally, no, I don't think the appeal of the club championship is, on a personal level, is that it's less hassle and it's less stress, etc. For me, it probably suits at this particular time in your life, but I think there's no buzz like being involved in an inter-county dressing room at a particular level that you're not used to, you're accustomed to. But I can imagine that it's probably the scenario where, post Andy McEntee's retirement from Meath, even pre-Colm O'Rourke's appointment in Meath as well, where they both spoke about, the level of scrutiny, the level of kind of discussion that goes around, the level of kind of rumour and innuendo, and I don't think you learn to live with that, but I think we're getting better at that, if you like, in terms of the management of you kind of live in your own bubble of listen, we're giving it everything we have, and certainly that's the way I would have kind of approached it over the years. I would have been, less sensitive as the years went through it, and I think now that you're out of it, I become even more kind of, not as sensitive to kind of criticism or that. I think you just get used to it and you kind of move on, but that's that's not for everyone, you know.
Could you manage outside Waterford, do you think? Like, on a personal level, you know, would you have the enthusiasm and would you be able to do it?
That's a good question, because you kind of, you know, and I think it's probably well versed, if you like, that I had a serious connection with the players over the years, and in order to kind of not sever that connection, the last number of years I'd say I've been almost kind of nomadic in terms of my connection with the players that I was centrally involved with. In that I didn't text it for fear that you'd kind of accused of being behind the scenes or kind of hanging over them, etc. So yet when the Waterford job came up this summer, you talk about it with your wife for a minute. You kind of say, will you, 6, 7 or 8 years ago, I got my club to nominate me. I go around about the whole process because you want to do it, and now you're kind of contemplating, kind of saying to yourself, look, not now. You've no divine right to do it, but also the connection is pulling you, I suppose, in terms of the players that are involved still centrally to the team. So to answer your question in terms of being involved with another team, the answer is probably yes, but I think you probably have to change your methodologies. In terms of connection over the years, for me, was based on my school connection with a lot of those boys that were central to the Waterford thing. And you're in Waterford, you live in Waterford, you love the players, you love what you're doing. You'd have to really work hard on that connection part. That's part of any manager's philosophy, but that could be achieved too. So yeah, I wouldn't rule it out, certainly. Yeah.
Derek, just want to get your thoughts, I suppose, on the man who did get the Waterford job, Davy Fitzgerald. And I know Peter Queally and Owen Kelly have gone in there and his backroom team as well. That's come out in the last couple of weeks. And I know you had high hopes for this Waterford team last year, and maybe it didn't materialise in the end for them, but there's still a lot of talent in that squad. How do you expect Davy to fare? Like, is the pressure on him from the outset?
Yeah, I'm not so sure, because I think no more than myself, in terms of, you learn in punditry and you learn from over expectation on the back of the league final. First of all, it's a hugely talented group of players that will probably be, added to by, albeit Patrick Fitzgerald didn't light it up for Ballygunner the weekend, but Patrick and Mark Fitzgerald, I think, will have an impact on the team next year. So I think there's a kind of a more realistic expectation now in that, becoming one of the 3 teams that qualifies from Munster will be ultimately the aim, and I think Davy fancies that. And if you watch and if you look at Davy's kind of track record, even when he came in 2008 in Waterford, all the way up to his involvement in Wexford, I think Davy has a really, really good bounce kind of factor, and I think there'll be a bounce there. There's excitement. I know that Desi Hutchison, in his speech even on Sunday there after the match, he kind of thanked the county board for the appointment. So I think the earlier kind of, not negativity, but pessimism that seemed to kind of greet it at some levels in Waterford has been replaced by an excitement. After all, the man has won Munster Championship with Waterford, Leinster Championship with Wexford, All-Irelands as a player, All-Irelands as a coach. And I think the one thing I think Davy doesn't get enough credit for, because sometimes the animation can kind of allow people to have a particular opinion. I go back to even 2008 with Waterford. Davy was the first man I knew that, he put Owen Kelly in on the edge of the square. John Milan and Owen McGrath were 35, 40 yards from the goal, and the half-forward line were way deep back in his own half of the field. And similarly with Clare in 13, etc. So I think Davy is a lot more tactically flexible than people give him credit for. I think people wedge him to the sweeper system, but I think you'll see kind of, a nice flexibility. And I think tactically that Waterford team will buy into that. I think they like the mixture of structure and expression, and I think Davy will bring that.
Derek, I know you've got to go to class. You're very good. It's always fascinating to talk to you. Thanks a million for your time this morning. Cheers.
Not a bother, lads. Mind yourselves.
That's Derek McGrath there.
Bye-bye.
As I said, always really interesting to hear his thoughts.